Roll call, please.
Mr. Blue?
Here.
Mr. Householder?
Here.
Mr. McCullough?
Here.
Mr. Rush?
Here.
Mr. Watkins?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Too fast for you, Tracy.
That's all right.
Quick on the trigger there.
See, now you
wants to
see,
get
I
this
like to
done.
move these meetings along.
Silent.
I'll accept a motion for approval and correction of the minutes. Am I on the wrong one?
You're on the wrong
I'm on
one.
the wrong one. This is the, see, I don't do it by paper. We don't have this one in Google. Here we go. All right.
It is, but
Is it? But I don't have it. We did the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, election of president, according to ORC 3313.11, requires a recorded individual vote. So do we have a nomination for president?
David Householder.
All right, and a motion to accept that nomination.
McCollum?
Second,
Rush.
discussion.
Hear that train coming.
I hear it. All right, vote please.
Mr. Householder?
Nope.
Mr. McCullough?
Yes.
Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Mr. Watkins?
Yes.
Mr. Blue?
Yes.
That passes 4-1. All right, election of vice president. Do I have a nomination for vice president?
Mark Rush?
Any others?
I'll second that nomination.
Okay, so we got McCullough, he moved, and Lou seconded. Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. McCullough?
Yes.
Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Mr. Watkins?
Yes.
Mr. Blue?
Yes.
Mr. Householder?
Absolutely. Okay, establish a date and time and location for the regular meetings. I would entertain a motion to accept the third Monday of the month at 7 p.m. at the board office.
So moved.
Second,
Rush.
any discussion?
Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Mr. Watkins?
Yes.
Mr. Blue?
Yes.
Mr. Householder?
Yes.
Mr. McCullough?
Yes.
Okay, number 6, authorization for the treasurer to request advanced draws of tax settlements up to $600,000 each. Motion?
McCollum?
We got McCullough first and Rush second. Any discussion? Vote?
Mr. Watkins?
Yes.
Mr. Blue?
Yes.
Mr. Householder?
Yes.
Mr. McCullough?
Yes.
Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Okay. Number 7, authorization of the treasurer to invest interim and inactive funds as deemed appropriate to gain the best interest rate. Motion to accept.
Blue.
Second,
McCollum?
discussion. Vote, please.
Mr. Blue?
Yes.
Mr. Householder?
Yes.
Mr. McCullough?
Yes.
Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Mr. Watkins?
Yes.
Designation of purchasing agent for the district and establishment of maximum allowable single purchases without prior board authorization. The purchasing agent would be Jennifer Penzarski, and a maximum allowable single purchase amount of $25,000. Motion to accept.
Rush.
Watkins.
Vote or discussion? Vote.
Mr. Householder?
Yes.
Mr. McCullough?
Yes.
Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Mr. Watkins?
Yes.
Mr. Blue?
Yes.
Number 9, authorization of cafeteria manager, maintenance supervisor, technology supervisor, and transportation supervisor to purchase supplies and materials up to a maximum of $2,500 per order. Motion to accept.
McCollum?
Second.
Blue.
Discussion. Should we really have the technology supervisor?
2,500 is plenty. He can order his wires
Okay.
and cords.
I just want to make sure. All right, vote please.
Mr. McCullough?
Yes.
Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Mr. Watkins?
Yes.
Mr. Blue?
Yes.
Mr. Householder?
Yes. Authorization for superintendent to approve staff member attendance at professional meetings. Motion to accept.
Rush.
Second.
Watkins.
Discussion. Vote please.
Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Mr. Watkins?
Yes.
Mr. Blue?
Yes.
Mr. Householder?
Yes.
Mr. McCullough?
Yes.
have,
Committees.
see, find this in
I have it right here if you'd like.
there. You have it out already? All right. Very good. Look
But
at you.
it's a little out of order, but
That's okay, yeah,
Did you
they don't
find
have to
it?
be in order, yeah. Okay, so on the committee appointments, what we had from the last one was Facilities and Transportation was Blue and Watkins, Cafeteria was McCullough and Watkins, Audit and Finance was Haushalter and McCullough, Personnel was McCullough and Rush, Curriculum Instruction was Haushalter and Watkins, Business and Education was Haushalter, Policy was Haushalter and Rush, Co-curricular Music and Athletics was McCullough and Rush. Records Commission would be, has to be the president, so that will go to me. OSBA Legislative Liaison would be McCullough. Parks and Rec is McCullough. Ari Allen Scholarship, Blue, and Ohio High Point Career Center would be Blue. The only thing that I would do, and only because I understand what your thoughts are for next year, Mark McCullough, would be if we moved Mark Watkins into Audit and Finance, and we moved Mark McCullough into Facilities and Transportation. Is that acceptable with the two of you?
Fine with me. Yeah, that's fine.
That would be my only, unless you guys want to do something else.
I'm
You
good.
guys are
I'm good.
okay.
I think
It's
the
totally open.
High Point's a second and a third year thing anyway, so.
Right, yeah, you have to
Yeah.
be that, you're required to do that for now, because you were voted in the 3-year period. But
No, I'm good with it.
all right, okay, so,
can you say the change one more time? just
yeah,
so
the
that I can write
change,
it
the
down
change
for
will
Linda?
be, Mark Watkins will resign from Facilities and Transportation,
No, I was gonna borrow your pen.
and Mark McCullough will take his place on that.
On facilities.
So it'll be Blue and McCullough on Facilities and
Okay.
Transportation, and on Audit and Finance, it'll be Haushalter and Watkins.
Great, thank you.
Otherwise, then everything
Everything's the
stays the
same.
same.
Okay, thank you, I'm sorry.
You need it for,
All
Nope.
right.
I just need to write that. Oh, thanks.
Motion to accept.
Rush.
Second.
McCullough?
Any other discussion? Everybody hates what they do. All right, vote please.
Mr. Watkins?
Yes.
Mr. Blue?
Yes.
Mr. Householder?
Yes.
Mr. McCullough?
Yes.
Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Okay, number 12, appoint Jennifer Penzarski as the Title IX Compliance Officer and the Title, what is that, Title VI Coordinator. Motion to accept.
Blue.
Watkins?
Second on Watkins. Any discussion? Vote please.
Mr. Blue?
Yes.
Mr. Householder?
Yes.
Mr. McCullough?
Yes.
Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Mr. Watkins?
Yes.
Appoint Michelle Wise as the Section 504 Coordinator, which is for handicap. Motion to accept.
McCullough?
Rush.
Discussion? Vote.
Mr. Householder?
Yes.
Mr. McCullough?
Yes.
Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Mr. Watkins?
Yes.
Mr. Blue?
Yes.
Okay, I'll have a motion to adjourn the reorganization meeting at 7:08.
Watkins?
Second,
McCullough?
vote please.
Mr. McCullough?
Yes.
Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Mr. Watkins? Mr. Blue?
Yes.
Mr. Householder?
Yes.
Say everything.
We're not going to repeat the pledge of allegiance.
You gotta be all right. It's pretty high pressure. Yeah.
Okay, so now, back to our regularly scheduled meeting. So we'll have a roll call of members again.
Mr. Blue?
Here.
Mr. Householder?
Here.
Mr. McCullough?
Here.
Mr. Rush?
Here.
Mr. Watkins?
Okay, now we'll skip the pledge this time, and we'll go to the approval and correction of the minutes of the regular meeting of December 19th, 2016. Motion?
Watkins?
Second?
McCullough?
Whoever you got. Write it down. Discussion? Any corrections or changes? All right, vote please.
Mr. Householder?
Yes.
Mr. McCullough?
Yes.
Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Mr. Watkins?
Yes.
Mr. Blue?
Yes.
Okay, we don't have any Principal
This week,
advisory.
or this month.
Yeah, and we don't have any public participation. How did you two find reporting, gentlemen? All right, reports of the treasurer, please.
Watkins.
Second,
Blue.
discussion. Is there anything in there that,
No, we're right in line, and I think everything's going well. We did our first payment for the HSA on January 3rd. I have 9 people that I had 9 people at that point that had not set up their accounts, and 3 of them, I was able to fund theirs today.
oh, great.
So I still got 6.
Great.
So we're getting close.
Yeah, well, that's not bad.
No,
No,
out of
none of
100,
them,
out of
yeah.
180 some.
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
So,
It's pretty good.
yeah.
Pretty good. Okay, anything else?
Are those accounts local or are they through?
No, the Hardin Insurance Consortium uses Optum,
Yeah, okay.
so that's where we're at this point.
Yeah.
I think it's something they're gonna look at down the road.
I'm just
But-
curious how they did that.
Yeah. So, and then tomorrow through Friday, we do our first 4 days on SunGuard.
Okay, well,
Conversion.
and so let's talk about what SunGuard is, just so that everybody knows what SunGuard is.
SunGuard is a financial HR software program. It was selected by the State Council of, I guess, computer organizations to replace what's currently being used, which is state software. A lot of the, like all the reports that we do currently on state software is still, I don't know, 1980?
It's DOS-based.
Is DOS-based, okay. Real old technology. And so we will be converting to eFinance Plus, which has a lot of things that we've never seen. I mean, people are going to be able to apply for jobs right online. They'll be able to fill out their tax forms online. We won't have to manually enter that information. We can look it over and check it, but we don't have to manually enter that stuff anymore. So we're hoping it's going to be really interesting.
It should make us more efficient, so I'm very excited.
Yeah.
I will be very excited when we have our finance meeting next month to learn all about it, so.
So tomorrow, this week is a 4 intense days of overview. And then we'll start getting into the nitty-gritty where we're going to have to make some changes in our account coding. They have fewer numbers for us to use. So we'll have to do some changes there. But I know Misty's already worked like on our vendor list to migrate that. So
How big of a job is the transition?
It's going to be pretty big.
It's gonna be big.
I mean, like us being out 4 days is not good.
Yeah,
You know, when you're trying, next week you got to do a payroll.
yeah, right.
So, yeah. So we know there's going to be extra hours, there's going to be days we're working when it's supposed to be our holiday, and
What's your target date for that full transition?
we're supposed to be on the new one July 1st.
Okay. Yeah.
So, the ITC has had both New Knoxville and Waynesville Goshen started the process, but I don't know if you know, their treasurer had a stroke.
Oh, jeez.
So they have not completed theirs, but
It
Kathy.
wasn't due to the process, was it?
No, no. She had a lot of things happen within their family that led to this. But Kathy went live January 1 at New Knoxville.
Okay,
And she will be doing she will be helping with Anna's conversion,
okay,
which I thought was interesting.
yeah.
So, no, I hope it does not lead to stroke.
Exactly, exactly.
That would be bad.
Okay, anything else for the treasurer? Vote, please.
Mr. McCullough,
Yes.
Mr. Rush,
Yes.
Mr. Watkins.
Yes.
Mr. Blue,
Yes.
Mr. Householder.
Yes. Right, superintendent's reports and communications.
Really, the only thing would be the end of second 9 weeks is this week, and Friday is Records Day, so there's no school for students. And then when we come back on Tuesday, we'll start third 9 weeks or second semester.
Board committee reports. Finance committee, you want me to cover it since that was really my job last month?
Yeah, I
Was
forgot,
it-
I didn't bring my paper with me
Wasn't
tonight, so.
So.
There wasn't a lot in it.
There was not a lot in it. We had, we talked about the Hardin Central property in finance, and it looks like that we should be closing here sometime between now and the end of the month. So we don't know the exact date yet, but that's the track, and we should be able to finish that job up, which then put us right into the bus garage. And so we need to settle on our options we talked about in the finance committee, and that's one of the things that we're going to try to work out tonight in executive committee. So we'll start to get that nailed down and hammer it out. But other than that, finance was, those were the things that we talked about. So. Anything else there, Mark?
That was about it, it was pretty short, we didn't have a lot there.
All right, facilities committee?
I don't have anything tonight.
Yeah, the garage thing continues. I guess there's no reason I can't share about the push that by some individuals to perhaps expand the athletic facility. So there's some work being done by some, in volunteer basis, community members to add a indoor practice type facility. So that's a great thing, and we appreciate that work, and hopefully that can come together.
Very good. Extracurricular?
Nothing really to report. Everything I think is going along really well. I know girls basketball is doing good, and boys are doing well. So swim team, not sure. I think wrestling's struggling a little bit, but overall I think everything's going good.
Good.
Great.
Career Center?
We actually have our reorganizational meeting Wednesday night, so we're pretty much the same as the mode we are here.
Okay. And policy did not meet in this month. So. Is there any old business to come before the board? And none, we'll move on to new business. All right, section 10, 10A through 10E. These are personnel items. Motion to approve.
Watkins.
Second,
Blue.
discussion.
Discuss that 10B.
Oh, yeah.
There are characters on there.
There are some scary characters on there, but it's volunteer, so we're not paying them. So that would be Ryan as a volunteer. He's on here, just for the TV audience at home. Anything there that we need to go over? Yep, supplemental contract for middle school assistant track coach. Two of those, Rick Collins and Kevin Kapanko. Club Award. Anything else? No? Vote, please.
Mr. Blue,
Yes.
Mr. Householder,
Yes.
Mr. McCullough,
Yes,
Mr. Rush,
Yes.
Mr. Watkins.
Yes.
All right, number 11, authorizations and resolutions, 11A and 11B.
Under 11B, if you'll just add the letter C before you do the motion.
Okay, yep, sure we will. Okay, put the letter C in there. Motion to accept,
Blue.
second.
Rush.
Discussion,
So 2 calendars were presented. We're actually ahead of schedule this year, which is a positive. But 2 calendars were built, and the staff has the opportunity to vote on which calendar they would prefer. And the infamous vote is always Fair Week off or go to school Fair Week. This year, 81% of the staff members who voted would prefer calendar C. They're both created pretty equal, so we try to work that out so that we front load the first half of the year, knowing that there's testing and a lot going on at the second half of the year. So calendar C does have Fair Week off. We also break down the vote by teachers because we want to know specifically how they feel about the calendars as a cohort, and their percentage was 80% for calendar C. So they felt that it was academically strong, so it was close to the 81-19. That makes our first day of school August 17th. It makes our last day of school, I have to flip one more page, May 24th, which would make graduation May 26th. And so the complete calendar, if this is the one that's chosen, will be sent out to everyone as soon as possible. The reason we did it easier this year, or earlier this year, was because of the EMIS transition. And so there's a lot of people learning new tasks, new skills, and so we wanted to make sure we had this in place so that we had some time to get the calendar inputted in the system like it needed to be done. Any questions about calendar C?
Any other discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Householder?
Yes.
Mr. McCullough?
Yes.
Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Mr. Watkins?
Yes.
Mr. Blue?
Yes.
Okay, and with that, we'll approve the motion to go into executive session for evaluations of the superintendent and treasurer and discuss the purchase of property, which is the bus garage thing. And so time in would be, what time is it? It is 7:22. 7:22. There will be no further action taken after executive session. Motion to accept.
Rush.
Second.
McCullough?
Any other discussion? No? With that, we'll say that I'll mention that the next regular board meeting for the Board of Education will be held February 20th, 2017, at 7 p.m. at the board office. And vote, please.
Mr. McCullough?
Yes.
Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Mr. Watkins?
Yes.
Mr. Blue?
Yes.
Mr. Householder?
Yes.